What happens when one of Hollywood's most intense actors sits down with one of television's most controversial talk show hosts, and the conversation spirals completely out of control? What follows is the most explosive celebrity interview meltdown in recent memory. A clash so heated it ended with security being called and a major A-list star escorted off the set. This isn't just another celebrity spat. It's a masterclass in how a talk show host's ego can turn a simple interview into a career-defining disaster. Subscribe and comment below because you won't believe how it unfolded. The green room at Real Time with Bill Maher buzzed with the usual pre-show energy. Tom Hardy sat quietly in the corner, his trademark intensity simmering just beneath the surface, as he prepared for what should have been a routine promotional interview for his latest film. The British actor had always been known for his thoughtful, measured responses, but there was something different about his demeanor tonight. Perhaps it was the producer's briefing, or the controversial comments the host had made about British actors in recent weeks that had already put Hardy on edge. "Or Mr. Hardy, we're ready for you," the production assistant announced. Clipboard in hand, Hardy stood, adjusted his jacket, and made his way toward the studio floor. The audience was already warmed up, their energy palpable as the cameras prepared to roll. Bill Maher stood at his desk, shuffling through notes with that familiar smirk that had become his signature. He glanced up as Hardy approached, and for a brief moment, there was something almost predatory in his expression. "Tom, great to have you here," Maher said, extending his hand. Hardy shook it firmly, perhaps a bit too firmly, as if sending an early message about the kind of guest he intended to be. "I've been looking forward to this conversation." "Likewise," Hardy replied, his voice carrying that distinctive gravelly tone. Those who knew him well might have detected something else. A slight edge suggesting he wasn't here just to play the typical Hollywood promotion game. The cameras rolled and Maher launched into his opening with characteristic smugness. "Tonight, we have with us Tom Hardy, star of the new action thriller dominating box offices worldwide. Tom, welcome to Real Time." "Thank you for having me, Bill," Hardy responded, settling into his chair with the coiled energy of someone ready for anything. "So, Tom, I have to ask," Maher began, leaning back in his chair with that knowing smile, "what is it with you British actors always trying to sound so serious and intellectual? I mean, you're making superhero movies and action flicks, but you all act like you're performing Shakespeare." The question hung in the air like a challenge. Hardy's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly, but he maintained his composure. "I think that's a rather reductive way of looking at it, Bill. Acting is acting. Whether you're on a stage in London or on a film set in Hollywood, the craft doesn't change based on the genre." "Oh, come on," Maher pressed, his voice taking on that condescending tone. "You can't tell me that putting on a mask and growling as Bane required the same level of artistic integrity as, say, Hamlet. Let's be real here." Hardy's eyes narrowed slightly. "Actually, I can tell you exactly that. Every role requires complete commitment, complete transformation. The fact that you think there's a hierarchy of artistic worth says more about your understanding of the craft than it does about mine." The audience shifted uncomfortably. This wasn't the usual playful banter they expected. Tension was building, and Maher seemed to be enjoying it. "Wow. Defensive much?" "Look, I'm not trying to attack your artistic integrity here, Tom. I'm just saying that maybe some of you take yourselves a bit too seriously." "And maybe," Hardy shot back, his voice calm but edged, "some talk show hosts confuse cynicism with intelligence and think that mocking their guests makes for good television." The studio fell silent. Even the usually animated audience sensed that something significant was happening. Maher's smile faltered for a moment before returning, now looking forced, almost plastic. "I see we have a feisty one tonight, folks," he said, turning to the audience. "I'm not feisty, Bill," Hardy replied, voice steady and controlled. "I'm just not interested in playing along with whatever game you think this is. You invited me to talk about my work, so let's talk about my work. Or are you more interested in cheap shots and easy laughs?" Maher's demeanor shifted. The practiced television host persona began to crack, revealing something uglier underneath. "You know what, Tom? I've been doing this show for years, and I've interviewed everyone from presidents to Nobel Prize winners. I think I know how to conduct an interview. Do you?" "Because from where I'm sitting, It seems like you're more interested in hearing yourself talk than actually listening to your guests. When was the last time you asked a question that wasn't designed to make yourself look clever? Tension in the studio was palpable. Crew members exchanged glances, unsure whether to intervene. Maher's face was reddening, his carefully maintained composure slipping with each passing moment. Listen, buddy. I don't know what kind of shows you're used to doing in England, but this is my show and I'll run it how I see fit. Your show, Hardy repeated as if tasting the words. Right. And that gives you license to be disrespectful to your guests, to reduce their work to punchlines, to treat them like they're here for your amusement rather than to have a conversation. I'm not being disrespectful, Maher snapped. I'm being honest, something that's apparently in short supply in your industry. Hardy leaned forward, intensity fully focused. Honesty, is that what you call it? Because I'd call it intellectual laziness disguised as insight. You hide behind this persona of being the guy who tells it like it is, but really you're just another bully with a microphone. The audience was dead silent, sensing they were witnessing something unprecedented. Maher's face had gone from red to nearly purple, hands gripping the desk. You don't know what you're talking about, do I? I know exactly what I'm talking about, Hardy said, steel in his voice. I know a man who built a career on punching down, making himself feel superior by diminishing others. I know a coward who hides behind the excuse of comedy when called out for his behavior. That's enough, Maher said, voice shaking. You're out of line. Am I? Hardy stood slowly, his presence dominating the studio. Or am I just refusing to participate in whatever psychological game you think you're playing? You want to know what's out of line? Inviting someone onto your show and ambushing them with your personal insecurities. The studio lights seemed to burn brighter as Hardy towered over Maher, who remained seated like a cornered animal. The host's usual smugness had evaporated, replaced by desperation. Sit down, Tom, Maher said, voice attempting authority but betraying a tremor. You're making a scene? I'm making a scene. Hardy's laugh was devoid of humor. Bill, you've been making a scene for 20 years. The only difference is that now someone's calling you out on it. He remained standing, presence filling the space like a storm cloud. You know what your problem is. You think because you have a platform you have wisdom. You think because people laugh at your jokes, you're actually funny. But what you really are is a man so insecure about your own relevance that you have to tear down everyone around you to feel important. Maher's hands shook as he shuffled note cards in a desperate attempt to regain control. This is ridiculous. You're being completely unreasonable. I asked you a simple question about your career, and you're acting like I personally attacked you. A simple question. Hardy's voice rose for the first time. You called my work a joke. You suggested British actors are pretentious frauds. You spent the last 10 minutes trying to make me look foolish for your audience, and now you want to play the victim. The cameras continued to roll, capturing every moment of what was rapidly becoming television history. The production crew stood frozen, unsure whether to intervene. In the control room, producers debated whether to cut to commercial, but the raw authenticity was too compelling to interrupt. Look, Maher said, attempting to regain footing. Maybe we got off on the wrong foot. Why don't you sit down and we can start over? Talk about your new movie. Keep things light. Hardy stared at him, expression unreadable. Keep things light, he repeated slowly. As that your solution to everything, Bill? When things get real, when someone challenges you, you just want to keep things light. No, I think we're past that point. What do you want from me? Maher snapped, facade cracking. An apology. Fine. I'm sorry if I offended your delicate British sensibilities. Happy now. My delicate British sensibilities. Hardy's voice dropped to a dangerous whisper. You think this is about nationality, about some cultural misunderstanding. He leaned forward, placing his hands on Maher's desk. This is about basic human decency, something you've forgotten in your rush to be the edgiest guy in the room. Get your hands off my desk, Maher said, voice cracking with fear and indignation. This is my show, and I won't be intimidated by some muscle-bound actor having a tantrum. Intimidated. Hardy straightened, a cold smile at the corners of his mouth. Bill, if I wanted to intimidate you, you'd know it. What I'm doing is trying to have an actual conversation with you, but you're too busy protecting your ego to engage like an adult." The audience was completely silent. Some leaned forward in their seats, others glanced around nervously, as if expecting security to rush in at any moment. The tension had reached a breaking point, and everyone could feel it. "You know what your real problem is," Hardy continued, his voice gaining momentum. "You've surrounded yourself with yes men and sycophantic fans for so long that you've forgotten what it's like to have someone actually challenge you. You've created this little kingdom where you're the smartest guy in the room, and anyone who disagrees is just too stupid to understand your brilliance." "That's not true," Maher protested, but his voice lacked conviction. "I have plenty of guests who disagree with me. That's the whole point of the show." "No, Bill." Hardy shook his head. "You have guests who disagree with you on safe topics, predetermined talking points you can handle. But when someone questions your methods, your character, your basic competence as a host, you fall apart. Just like you're falling apart right now." Maher's face had gone from purple to almost gray, sweat beading on his forehead. "You don't know anything about me or my show. You're just another actor who thinks that, because you can memorize lines, you're qualified to lecture the rest of us about how the world works. And you're just another bitter man who confuses controversy with relevance." Hardy shot back. "You think that because you can make people uncomfortable, you're profound. You think that because you can be cruel, you're honest. But what you really are is a playground bully who never grew up." The words hit like a physical blow. Maher's mouth opened and closed several times, but no sound came out. For perhaps the first time in his career, he was truly speechless. The man who had built his reputation on quick wit and a sharp tongue had been reduced to stammering silence by an actor who refused to play by his rules. "You want to know what honest looks like, Bill?" Hardy's voice was steady, controlled, but filled with intensity. "Honest is admitting you invited me here not to have a conversation, but to have a target. Honest is acknowledging that you get off on making your guests uncomfortable because it makes you feel powerful. Honest is recognizing that you've turned meanness into a brand and called it entertainment." "I don't have to listen to this," Maher finally managed, voice barely above a whisper. "This is my show, and I can have you removed if you don't calm down." "There it is," Hardy said, a note of triumph in his voice. "The threat, the last resort of every bully when they realize they can't win with words. You're going to have me removed because I had the audacity to treat you the way you treat everyone else, because I refuse to be your victim." The studio was so quiet that the hum of the cameras was audible. Even the crew had stopped moving, afraid to break the spell of this unprecedented moment. Maher looked around desperately for an escape route, but there was nowhere to go. He was trapped behind his own desk on his own show, being systematically dismantled by a guest who had simply refused to play along. "You're making a mistake," Maher said, voice shaking. "You don't understand how this business works. You can't just come on someone's show and attack them like this. There will be consequences." Hardy's laugh was cold and mirthless. "Consequences? What are you going to do, Bill? Tell the industry that Tom Hardy was mean to you, that he didn't let you humiliate him for your audience, that he actually stood up for himself instead of playing your little game." The threat seemed to awaken something primal in Maher, a desperate animal cornered by a superior predator. His eyes darted frantically between Hardy and the cameras, realizing that every moment of his humiliation was being recorded. "You think you're so clever, don't you?" Maher's voice cracked. "You think you can come on my show and make me look like a fool?" "I don't need to make you look like a fool, Bill," Hardy replied with devastating calm. "You're doing that all by yourself. I'm just refusing to pretend otherwise." He straightened his jacket deliberately, a gesture more threatening than any raised voice. "The question is, what are you going to do about it?" Maher's face contorted with rage and humiliation. The careful mask he had worn for decades was gone, revealing the petty, vindictive man beneath. "What am I going to do about it?" he repeated, voice rising to a near shriek. "I'll tell you what I'm going to do. Security!" The word echoed through the studio like a gunshot. Audience members gasped, and the crew exchanged alarmed glances. But Hardy didn't move. He stood perfectly still, a slight smile playing at his lips as if he had been waiting for this moment all along. Security. Maher screamed, pounding his fist on the desk. Get this maniac out of here! He's threatening me! He's out of control! Threatening you? Hardy's voice remained calm, which made it even more unnerving. Bill, I haven't laid a finger on you. I haven't raised my voice. I haven't even stepped closer than this desk. The only thing I've done is refuse to let you treat me like garbage. And apparently that's enough to send you into a complete meltdown. Two security guards appeared at the edge of the set, looking uncertain and uncomfortable. They had dealt with unruly audience members before, but this was different. A respected A-list actor having a philosophical debate with their boss. Don't just stand there, Maher shouted at them, voice cracking. Remove him! He's disrupting my show! He's being aggressive! The guards looked at each other, then at Hardy, who hadn't moved a muscle. One, a large man with graying hair, approached cautiously. Sir, I'm going to have to ask you to leave, he said, voice lacking authority. It was clear even he saw how absurd the situation was. Hardy looked at the guard with something approaching sympathy. I understand you're just doing your job. But take a good look at what's happening here. I'm standing calmly, having a conversation. He's the one screaming and pounding on his desk. Who exactly is being disruptive? The guard hesitated, torn between professional obligations and common sense. The entire studio watched, waiting to see what would happen next. I said, remove him. Maher's voice reached a fever pitch. All pretense of dignity abandoned. This is my show, my show! He doesn't get to disrespect me like this! Hardy turned back to him, eyebrows raised in genuine surprise. Bill, you've spent the last 30 minutes trying to humiliate me. And when I finally respond in kind, you call it disrespect. What would you call what you've been doing to me? I was doing my job, Maher screamed, spittle flying. I was being a talk show host. That's what I do. I ask hard questions. I challenge people. I don't just let celebrities promote their stupid movies. Hard questions. Hardy's voice carried genuine incredulity. Bill, you asked if British actors take themselves too seriously. That's not a hard question. That's a childish provocation. A hard question would be about the craft of acting, the challenges of the industry, the responsibility that comes with influence. What you asked was the intellectual equivalent of pulling someone's pigtails and running away. The comparison hit Maher like a physical blow. His face went white, then red, then white again. How dare you? He whispered. How dare you come on my show and psychoanalyze me like some two-bit therapist? You're an actor. You pretend to be other people for a living. You don't get to tell me who I am. I'm not telling you who you are, Bill, Hardy said, voice tinged with pity. I'm telling you who you've shown yourself to be. Tonight, in front of all these people, you've shown yourself to be a small, petty man who can't handle being challenged. You've shown yourself to be someone who confuses cruelty with wit, aggression for intelligence. Get out, Maher said, voice barely audible. Just leave. I don't want to see you anymore. I don't want to hear your voice. Just leave. Hardy nodded slowly. I'll leave, Bill, but not because you're throwing me out. I'll leave because there's nothing left to say. You've made your position clear and I've made mine. He turned to face the cameras directly, presence commanding even in defeat. Ladies and gentlemen, this is what happens when someone refuses to play the game. This is what happens when you stand up to a bully. They don't engage with your arguments. They don't address your points. They simply try to make you disappear. I said get out. Maher shrieked, voice cracking. Security, drag him out if you have to. I don't care. Just get him away from me. The guards moved forward reluctantly, but Hardy held up a hand. That won't be necessary, he said with quiet dignity. I'll see myself out. But before I go, let me say this to everyone watching at home. He looked directly into the camera, eyes intense but calm. Don't let anyone treat you the way this man tried to treat me. Don't let anyone make you feel small for their entertainment. And don't let anyone tell you that standing up for yourself is inappropriate or aggressive. Sometimes the most radical thing you can do is simply refuse to be someone's victim. With that, he turned and walked toward the exit, stride confident and unhurried. The security guards followed at a respectful distance, more like an honor guard than enforcers. The studio remained dead silent until Hardy disappeared through the door. Then a low murmur began to ripple through the audience. Maher sat behind his desk, face pale and drawn, looking like a man who had just realized he made a terrible mistake. He stared at the door where Hardy had exited, then at the cameras, then at his notes, as if trying to salvage something from the wreckage of his own making. "We'll be right back," he finally managed to say, voice barely above a whisper. After that, the red light on the cameras went dark, but the damage was done. In a short span, one of television's most notorious hosts had been completely dismantled by an actor who refused to play by his rules. The footage would be dissected, analyzed, and remembered for years as the night Tom Hardy showed the world that sometimes the best way to win is simply to tell the truth. The real question isn't whether Hardy was right or wrong to confront Maher the way he did. The question is whether we've all been too comfortable letting people like him hide behind the excuse of entertainment when they're really just being cruel. Should Hardy have played along, or was he right to stand his ground? Who do you think was right in this argument? Comment below.